I get to talk about catastrophes, and I don't know how my name got brought into the till, but unfortunately, in almost 20 years of practice, I have seen all of these that I'm going to describe to you today. And I don't know, it seems really loud. Is it too loud back there? A little. All right. So, and specifically implications for emergency euthanasia, and I've queried several practitioners I work with on that, and I'll go through that here in a little while. First off, remember Murphy's Law. You know, anything that can go wrong will go wrong. Sooner or later, it does happen. There is a reason for our backup systems, even though we train, we test them every week. As boring as it is, they are important. And when poop hits the fan, you wonder why they don't work. You know, to Levi's point on backup generators, you know, we test them under load for 20 minutes to an hour a week. Well, that's very different than running for days on end. So those systems are very important, but we think it'll never happen to us. So I'm going to talk about tornadoes, fires, pit gas explosions, and power outages, all very fun events. I was involved in a series of wean to finish barns, 7 wean to finish barns that got hit by a string of tornadoes one night, north central Iowa. Tornadoes are actually the least bad of kind of all these, so I started with kind of the milder ones. You know, they create some pretty dramatic pictures. I'd never seen a 2x4 put through a pig before, but it does happen. You know, it can strip barns completely clean off the top. Right there's the penning gating. Everything else is missing. And what amazes me is you can drive up to the site, and the pigs are in the pen just like there was a whole roof there, for the most part. So they're pretty impressive when you drive up to them. And you also have to remember tires. I've gone through a lot of sets of tires around tornado sites. But some things to think about, I'll summarize here in a bit, is right, we produce food. Okay, and in a tornado, lots of steel, metal, debris, etc. is floating around. This is a live pig with a screw sticking out of his ham. So we need to think about those things. And then obviously the human safety factor, right? We're veterinarians. We are not necessarily trained in all different areas. Some of the questions I've been asked before, kind of like, you looking at me to answer that? I don't have all the answers. But tornadoes definitely can be catastrophic, but I'll represent them here as probably the least of the catastrophic events that I've been involved with. So they don't talk to you about some of this stuff in vet school, right? Insurance companies, they look for a professional. And why do they do that, right? They're seeking a source of truth, right? That's something we should be proud of as veterinarians, that our moral values, at least how we hold ourselves, gives us the right today to be deemed the professional. Document, right? Take pictures. And we all are paranoid about cameras on farms and the like, but now with cell phone technology, take pictures so you have a record of the event. You've got a timestamp. You've got more than just your memory. As you get older, for all the young faces in the room, your memory does fade. As much of a superhero as I think I am, some things slip my mind from time to time. Date, time, number, weight, age, any records on farm that you can take a picture of, even the mortality or the daily recorded mortality logs, the water usage, all of those factors may become an important fact weeks or months later as an investigation goes on. And also, right, we're a counselor on farm, right? That producer just had his barn blown away. Probably his largest, if it's a contractor, probably a larger asset than his home in some situations, right? For these young farmers, they've got their house, their kids, and they built a new wean to finish barn that, is integral for them in their life. So you have to be a counselor for them. So the, things that you start thinking about once reality happens, okay, so now I've got 20,000 market hogs with no roof on them. Where do I go with them? Right? What truck line do I line up who can haul that many loads in that short of a period of time? What about sunburn? Right? Sunburn occurs fairly rapidly on a barn without a roof. That hurts the pigs. Marketing withdrawals, metal objects. These are questions I get asked, or I've been asked before. Unfortunately, I don't always know the answer to these questions. Take your time, gather information, and slow down. Maybe you have to market the barn at 220 pounds. You have to get creative in some of these situations. The other is now once you report, have an attorney, have a relationship with an attorney of what to say and what not to say. And it's not that we have anything to hide, it's just you don't want to put yourself in, a position that you can't defend yourself. Next one is fire. So fire is bad. This is the worst on my list. As far as for the pigs. We'll talk a little bit about people here in a little bit. But I had a sow farm about 5 miles away from my house. I was about the fourth guy on site during this fire, and having to watch a barn of pigs burn in front of you is the worst experience I've ever been through. I can only think of the loss of human life or seeing that occur being worse. We had a 3,600 sow farm where half of it burnt down. It didn't matter what we did. You couldn't let the animals out. They would come back in the barn. You had to watch it burn. The loss of animals, the effects on employees, right? When you have 10 employees and tomorrow their job is gone, where do you send them, right? Do you let them go? Do you fire them? Do you temporarily relieve them? Do you move them to other farms? How do you manage that biosecurity? All of those things are constraints that on my normal day, I don't think through, right? Levi, do you do that every day of the week? Right? So you got to have a little practicality in what you do every day. And then the rumor mill, right? We all have Twitter. I read Twitter. I'm not an active tweeter, but the rumor mill is very, very fast in this world, and controlling that message and getting ahead of it and at least attempting to manage it is extremely important. Take some media training and in and amongst your team, right? There are a lot of teams here at this meeting. One person can't do it all. But when that event happens, reach out to the experienced member on your team to say, okay, what do I say, what do I not say? Refresh yourself, even if you've been through the media training. Talk to that expert. When you talk to the media, if there's several venues for media training in our industry, go at minimum take that course. Pork Board does that periodically. I've done it once or twice. I fail miserably when they put the camera in front of me, but go do it. I'm better than I was when I started. But what to say, what not to say, and right, find the positive to speak to. Right, in this farm, right, the devastating news, we lost 4,500 pigs. But the beauty of this story is we saved the other half of the barn, right? Focus on the positives, at least from a media perspective. And then the cleanup begins. It's for those of you who've not been through a fire, you learn a lot about insurance and claims. So, meeting with investigators, right? If you got a $100,000 loss or below, insurance company kind of writes a check. If you got $1 million or a few $1 million loss, the insurance company sends some pretty smart people to figure out what happened. In this fire, 9 investigators flew in from across the U.S. within 24 hours, and 20 minutes after they were on site, they knew exactly what happened. It was unbelievable. They brought in fire engineers that knew how plastic coated board burnt if it's in the vertical position versus the lateral position. I mean, they could map the fire down very, very rapidly and figure out how it occurred. Like I said, be cognizant of subrogation claims, right? They'll pay you for the loss, but they're going to go find somebody to get it from, right? And in this situation, it was a contractor that was on site that we were actually filtering this barn. And they cut an end wall, a gable hole in the end wall door at about 4:45 p.m. and left for the day without removing that piece of steel. And about the fire insulation is rated for 2 hours. That sprayed dried cellulose insulation. 2 hours and 27 minutes later, it lost its fire rating. And it's amazing how you learn through all these things. And that's when the room temperature and the room right above where this gable end door was cut, the temperature raised in that room, and the fire spread from there. But the science behind fire is, I could go back to college and study that. It's pretty cool, at least what I got to watch. Power failure, right? Power failure is a midsummer type disease of pig farms, or generally that's when it occurs, or when we at least have a loss due to it. Why? Because heat, right? Heat kills a lot of pigs really fast. And what you learn is what type of pigs can handle what conditions. Sows, you get them to about 100 degrees Fahrenheit, they start dying rapidly. But their baby pigs tend to live somewhere between 105 and 110 is where their critical body temperature is. But we had a power failure at a sow farm this summer, and farm had 2 automatic transfer switches. One of them went, one of them did not. The dial-out didn't work for that side of the farm, and we lost 1,800 sows in a GDU. And for those on 95-degree days, 1,800 sows and G-stalls start breaking down fairly rapidly. So we brought in a crew of about 80 people, and it took about 14 hours to drag out that many sows. Powerful, powerful visuals that occur to you when those events happen. That's why your backup devices are very, very critical. So we talk about implications, and like I said, I visited with several of our practitioners. So I've nearing 20 years of practice experience, and several of our others. There aren't a lot of events in my life where, in 20 years of practice, where I've had to euthanize a large number of piglets, or pigs, or sows, etc. I just have, between fires, right? The fire kills the animals. Power outage, heat kills the animals. The only I've only one time had to euthanize 650 head of piglets that survived through a nursery fire. That's been the largest number of animals I've ever had to euthanize in one setting. Almost all the other situations for these events, it's already done, by the time I've arrived. So I haven't, and we brainstormed internally where would be the situation, with the exception of a foreign animal disease, where we would have to do a mass euthanasia of a population of pigs. Hopefully we never have to do that. But with that, right, fires, there aren't many survivors, right, by the time you get there that the fire gets put out. If the pigs are small enough in the farrowing house, blunt trauma could be utilized. CO2, to me, is very slow and would consume a lot of CO2 and product and time. I think that would self-limit that. Bolt guns, and electrocution. Electrocution is a tool we've used in our system. I know many systems have adapted to CO2. It's an extremely efficient, bloodless euthanasia method that I've used on the outset of a fire. Very easy to set up. Most sites have power to them. It's not fun to talk about, but it's an extremely efficient tool, low-cost tool that should be considered. Tornadoes, similarly, right? Usually they don't kill a lot of pigs. On those 7 farms that got hit by that string of tornadoes that night, we lost like 80 pigs total out of, I don't know, whether it was 25,000 head worth of inventory, somewhere in that ballpark. So there wasn't a large catastrophic loss of pigs. And then after viewing the surviving pigs for wounds, etc., I think we euthanized less than 10. So now again, that's my experience. I'm sure there are tornadic events that have caused more injuries than that require euthanasia, but it wasn't a mass euthanasia event that we had to go through. In power outages, similarly, I talked about the sows in that situation were dead. There were 4 piglets in the farrowing house still alive, and there were 4 nursery age gilts in the gilt developer that were still alive after the power outage. Still not a mass number of animals that had to be euthanized in those situations. I do want to talk a little bit about flash fires. Within the last 2 weeks, we had a client that was burnt over 60% of his body because of a flash fire. The flash fires that I've been involved with have always been on an empty barn situation. And we think that's the case because there's nothing continually dropping down into that pit. It allows the foam to occur. And so again, that's not necessarily dangerous to the pigs per se. I'm sure there have been flash fires where pigs are in the barn. One that I have been involved with where pigs were in the barn, it was a low number of animals that were damaged or dead, and then a handful of pigs that we did have to euthanize. So not a mass euthanasia event. So but on the human safety side of this is something, especially this time of year, right? Our pits are full right now. The next 2 months are the period of time where we need to counsel our clients. You know, that empty barn, turning breakers on, off, heaters on, off. This is the danger zone for the next 2 months. And so pit fires are right, 'tis the season on empty barns right now. So, but again, we've used captive bolt on flash fires. Then the other is after you go through one of these high stress events, you got to be able to relax and find you go spend hours. When you have one of these catastrophic events, usually you're going to spend 10 to 20 hours at the site, and it ends up being a multi-day event. Whether it's a fire, whether it's a power outage, whether it's a tornado, I need some decompression after that, right? So reach out to friends, your spouse. Beer's a good thing, for me at least, and give support to others in need, right? They're your team members, and these events, if you haven't been through them before, you got to be tough to get through them. They aren't any fun, but you have to find a way to decompress. I'm friends with several EMTs, job I couldn't do, but after they're at a car accident scene or something like that, they have a mechanism internally how they decompress. At least what I've been through after traumatic situations, you have to have some outlet personally to be able to get through that. So, when you need help, ask, document, slow down, be a counselor, and relax are kind of my key take-homes after those experiences through time.